Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Synergized with our very special guest, Ms. Ruth Easterling. Hopefully you're able to join us with the first episode that Ruth sat down with us as we talked with her, and she shared with all of us her experiences around leadership and growth and where some of the core areas are we all can learn from and continue to grow. Ruth, thank you for taking the time to stick around for the second episode. Very much appreciated, my friend.
Yeah, no, it's great. I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks, Kevin.
You know, the last episode we turned off around the transformation piece and the passion for growth, and transformation. To your point, with that response, you referenced a client who was able to take a long list and narrow it down to create a more narrow focus. Synergy. When you hear the word synergize leadership in a phrase, or synergy, or bringing energy, you're right. Sometimes it's about we want to do this whole basket full of things, when the reality is we create more synergy when we can narrow that scope and focus. Talk a little bit about how you've learned that lesson in your career, or is that something that's been a natural skill for you?
No, I think that's a good question, Kevin, because here's the catch, is that in order for us to be able to do what our God-given abilities are, and to walk into our purpose. Now, we have a lot of them, just like I said in the last episode. Most of us come to the table with a lot of ability. But when we're talking about purpose, it kind of goes to the next level, right? And so, I mean, Kevin, for instance, is a man of many abilities. And he always, when I think about all the things he's done in his life, it has been a lot. And but then when you narrow it down to this purpose, it really comes down to understanding a system in which you are able to find the thing in which you're passionate about. And so when you begin to look into what am I passionate about, it begins to become, what are the things in which that keep me up at night, like I think about, or I wake up in the morning like super jazzed or excited about. And those are the things that you start to narrow down. You say, that I'm not passionate about that. And I actually have another client right now who I had her make the list. And I said, okay, you don't have enough. She's a person who loves to say yes to everything. And I said, you don't have enough time for everything. So which one of these things do you not like? And she's like, don't like that. Don't like that. I mean, she just crossed them off. Does she has ability to do them? Oh yeah, for sure. She has ability to do them. She doesn't like to do them. And so I think that that's the key to understanding our purpose, is the things, not only is it our strength, but it's our passion. So thanks, Kevin.
Well, passion is certainly at the core, Ruth, as you've indicated, when it comes to transformation and ensuring transformational leadership, making a transformational impact. It's not about shoveling the pile of dirt from one spot to the next and bringing it back. It's about truly putting that dirt where it needs to go to fill the hole in, so it stays there in that regard. And sometimes, though, that passion that brings the drive, if you will, to accomplish, whether it's growth in self or project or ensure success for the team, is challenged by sustaining inspiration, sustaining the opportunity to provide influence, especially for leaders who deal with multiple individuals who have multiple experiences, multiple skills. And it almost becomes just as significant, Ruth, in my experience, for that leader to truly know the individual and where his strength is compared to her strength, and being able to provide the influence at the right time, during the right setting, so to speak, meaning, and I'll use that pacing wise, because I can state, and we had a conversation with this recently with some other of our peers for the Maxwell leadership team. Sometimes feedback I have received, the pacing was completely wrong and the timing was way off because my required focus was elsewhere, and it took 100% of the focus, if you will. How can leaders today sustain consistent inspiration while providing that positive, moving ahead influence?
Okay, Kevin, I'm gonna ask you a different question. Okay, because I want to narrow that down a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So are you looking? when you say this, are you asking how does the person individually sustain, or how does he help the team to sustain?
How the individual sustains, so he or she's serving that team in that regard.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I think that part of being able to sustain yourself is being able to find the things that, again, that you're passionate about, the things that you enjoy doing. I know that one of the rules that I have for the things that I do every day, now granted, there are many things that need to happen every day, right? But the things that I spend the most time on are the things that I'm passionate about, or in my strength wheelhouse, right? The things that I'm we kind of more weak at, or I don't enjoy doing as much, those things I kind of leave maybe to a different part of the day or a different part of the week in order to get them done, shall we say, quickly. And I think that in order for me to sustain my ability to continue to go and grow, is I need to continue to work for my strengths and using my 80-20 principle to continue to help myself to be inspired, to continue to grow. So like one of the things, here's a practical way, is reading, right? And like you were saying earlier, sometimes you get there and you're like, I don't have time to read. Okay. Well, I've learned over the years is that in order for me to grow, I need to read. And if I'm going to understand what's going on in the world, understand what's going on in, my own profession, I have to read. Now, so I've learned lots of different ways to do it. And one of the ways that I do it is based on, well, sometimes I do it like doing an audible book. Sometimes I read a basic book, and I take 10 minutes every morning in reading. Like I said, it's part of my morning routine. And so I spend time in the morning reading, and then sometimes I'll be listening audibly. And I do that because that sustains my energy and my passion, right? So that when I bring people alongside of me, I'm able to continue to give to them. I've got, shall we say, new material to give to them. I've got new ideas to give to them, as well as it continues to fuel my passion. And so by allowing books and authors and people to pour into me, and the thing I do now is I listen to podcasts on subjects on leadership specifically, so that I get some new ideas and I'm constantly learning and growing. So I hope that answers your question, Kevin.
Oh, absolutely. Very much, very well stated, as a matter of fact. And, Ruth, as I hear you speaking on influencing and inspiration, how to sustain that as a leader in self, because if we can't sustain it in us as a leader, it's going to be difficult to generate it in others. When we find, and I think, at least maybe this is me trying to make an excuse for me, so to speak. But yeah, sometimes I think leaders carry a burden when they feel like they've reached that point, and sometimes we call it burnout or maybe fatigue in that setting. But when we sense that inspiration as leaders, that influencing ability for self is waning.
Yeah.
Could be a great time to go into to visit our meditation or how we clear our mind aspect.
Right. Totally. One of the things, Kevin, that I think about a lot is just understanding my capacity. And I think a long time ago, I used to think that there comes a place where you've learned it all, or you understand it all, right? And of course, as I got older, I'm like, let's blow the top off capacity, right? But I think that there's a couple of things that are involved in understanding what is my capacity, because what I do, I've always thought that there comes a time when I'm like, I'm tired. To point maybe almost a burnout. And so there's three things that I think that are essential in understanding what your capacity is. And the first thing is coming to awareness of who you are, right? That we talked about earlier. And when you are aware of who you are, and you are growing into who you are, it makes a humongous difference on how you are able to impact other people and your capacity. All right. I mean, that's the first thought. That's the first point. But the second one is your giftedness, and we're talking about the strengths. Because when I'm aware of who I am, I live from my strengths, right? And I'm living every day using my strengths, then I begin to be confronted by the things that are kind of coming my way. And then the third thing is I have to do is I have to make good choices. And so I'm honestly, every day I'm confronted by choices like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? How much time am I going to do it? And so when I look at my capacity, I think a long time ago, I thought that there was like this element to which I can only work this much. I only have 24 hours in the day. I only have this much. What I found is that the more I understand my awareness of myself, my giftedness, and my ability to make choices, my time and my energy level has gotten more and more and more. And that surprised me.
That's fantastic. But you use the word surprised you. So, sometimes that surprise is very positive and it's okay, right? You alluded to, you thinking that you'd accomplished and knew everything. A lot of us go through that. I know I was there closing that last book before high school graduation, right? I'm not going to study again, right? Well, life is nothing if it's not studying every day with everything we face. And, I really love John Maxwell, for him has changed the world programming and book, where he says life, basically leadership's all uphill. In that setting, and how true is that? And let's just face it. You have to accept that. If not, you're going to try to figure out how to coast downhill at times, and there is never any coasting.
Yeah. Well, and here's the catch, Kevin. And this again is another secret that I found. I feel like feel like I had to get to be 50 to learn all these secrets. but here's the secret that I found is that when we make these goals, and we say, okay, I'm going to do this, right? We get to the end of that goal and we're done. But that's the secret. We don't stop at goals. We continue to grow. And then we think, right, when we're 20, we think, oh, by the time I get to 70, I'll have it all under control, right? Well, I want to tell you, I have this one coaching client, and she's 70. And she came to me when she was 69. And I have to be honest with you. Okay, again, I told you I'm 50, right? And so I was, I thought, well, I'll help her with her thing, this one thing she came to talk to me about. And I'm like, and then I'll have her go on her way. I'm thinking, I literally wasn't quite thinking that she could accomplish so much more. And she surprised me. Because not only did she say, I'm going to do this, I mean, like she literally took on a hill. I mean, she took on a mountain. And I was shocked because I thought we'd just accomplish that little thing and then I'd send her on her way. But she decided to take on the mountain. And I thought, well, yeah, I mean, you're thinking, can you train old dogs new tricks, right? I mean, truthfully, Kevin, and she did it. Yesterday was her last day with me. And I just gave her this big hug and I said, you did it. And she's like, oh, I did it because of you. And I'm like, no, you didn't do it because of me. I'm your coach. Remember, I'm just sitting here going, hey, go. I got the pom-pom in my hand.
Shoot the ball, right?
And she did it. And she kept doing it. Fantastic. And every time, and I'm telling you, Kevin, some of them were way beyond anything that I've ever had to face.
That's fantastic. Great story. Thank you for sharing. And hey, let's walk ahead. You talk about the hug piece, right? And the first L in still love. And for me, I utilize that for people of faith, their focus and direction and purpose and the walk in faith, family and relationships in those aspects. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, love maybe is either used too much or misinterpreted in the aspect. And I was doing a recording with a school superintendent earlier on this same day in the AM, and I certainly do not want educators in the classroom teaching my grandchildren who don't love them. I want that heart and respect for care for the individual to be there. And I love Joe Mamby's book, Love Works, and talks about love in the agape agape frame, if you will. And if we're truly going to be in this together, if we're on a team together, if we're in a family together, love has got to play a key part. If we're going to climb those mountains and go after the big mountain and not just the small little sandhill.
Right. That's for sure. There's a lot of mountains to be climbed, Kevin.
I know. But if you will, when it comes to relationships as a leader, whether it's professionally or personally, what have you found to work for you?
Okay, Kevin, here's another question. The relationships that work for me or in my clients?
The relationships for you to be successful, we talked about connecting earlier. For you to be successful in developing relationships that bring value to them, to expand value to the people they come in contact with.
Yeah, one of the things that I have found, again, going back to when I was a pastor and really not working, I was working on my strengths, but I was working like nonstop, right? And I had no way to refuel, or I had little ways, but they weren't good enough to keep me going and to avoid burnout. And one of the things that I learned was I needed to, help people. Well, okay, that's all fine and dandy. And yeah, let's help people. But here's the problem is that when I didn't see them as important, I didn't want to help them anymore. Right. There's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't be important. And I could give you a whole long list of it. But one thing that I found as I got older is that as I learned to add value to other people, and I began to see people as important. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, I had to begin to see people as a 10, right? And I'll just be honest with you, as a person of faith, that is the only way I could see people as a 10. Because I knew that they were created by a God who loved them and cared about them. Because sometimes I look at people and I think, oh dear. But
You're
this
doing
God
that now, probably looking at me, right?
But, I now can look at every single person and see them as a 10 and be able to say, okay, I need to add value to them and I need not to get anything in return. And that's what servant leadership is all about. And that is where I had to get to. But I could not get there by not having margin, by not knowing myself and coming to awareness of myself. And like you said at the beginning, sometimes that sounds pretty darn selfish, but I'm not able to do what I need to do if I don't do that.
Exactly. It becomes an obstacle in what we have to pay it forward with in that regard. It blocks us in that aspect. And I certainly relate and have a great deal of experience in stumbling in that area. And as we move into Ruth Easterling's time and career as a leader, which has been almost forever, so to speak, as it is for all of us, because leadership isn't about the title we hold, the position we have. If nothing else, we lead ourselves. And if we can't lead ourselves, our opportunities to be effective in leading others have been slimmed down quite a bit. But when you think back about why has Ruth Easterling succeeded in becoming the person we see and hear today, the individual who puts others first while continually to work to grow and bring value to self, how have you done that? How have you been consistent and focused to get where you are today?
Well, Kevin, that's pretty easy. It's God. I can't say it any other way. I'd love to say that I was persistent and I was determined, and I have been. I'll be honest, I have been since I was probably 21 years old, and I haven't ever stopped. But at the same time, I had a helper all along the way who was encouraging me and continuing to help me to grow and to become all that I could be. And so, I would have to say when it comes to like intellectually, I was definitely persistent and determined, and I didn't stop. And I think that if you're the kind of person who desires to accomplish what you feel like in your heart, you've been given a gift, you feel like this is your strength, this is something in which you want to to use, or your purpose in which you've been called, I just want to encourage you that when you believe in yourself, which has to come from the kingdom that lives within you, and when you believe in yourself and you're persistent and determined to accomplish it, the actions in which you do that, it will happen.
Thank you for that, and that walks perfectly into my next question as we near the end of our sessions together, Ruth. You've offered so much golden nugget aspect for all of us to take away and bring value to reflect on and to grow. Is there any one big takeaway that you want to reemphasize or add to the discussion we've had so far for those out there looking to grow, expand their skills, their talents, their values, their principles in becoming a leader?
That's a good question, Kevin, because each one of us, if there was 3 things you could do, and I guess I did emphasize some of those in the capacity aspect, but as you know yourself and you grow yourself, take the time to understand your personality. Take the time to understand how can I continue to grow and in the different areas, because growing doesn't just happen through reading or going to a class, or those are really important, but you have to continue to do other things like journaling and understanding yourself, and you have to do things that require discipline and putting together your priorities. And so there's a lot of these little tiny steps that are going to help you to become all that you want to be. And again, I would say keep going. Action will, your constant action to achieve it will bring it to pass. So
I love that. They are one small step at a time, so to speak, and they don't have to be any one large step in that scenario. So, Ruth, you've alluded to this. You're not done with your growth journey. What's next for Ruth when it becomes her focus on that growth?
Well, you say that, Kevin, because I feel like every week I'm growing. I feel like there's another level, or the layer of the onion peeled. I've climbed another mountain. So no, it's a constant growth. And I don't think until the day I go on to heaven, I don't think I'm going to stop. But I have some routines in which I do grow. And one of the things, Kevin, you can have me on your show again, but I would love to talk about habits, because small daily habits change our lives.
I love that.
And so some of the things that I do in my small daily habits, like I've shared some of them, I read, I listen to podcasts, I interact with other people, I take classes. I'm constantly just trying to change what I'm doing, listen to what I'm doing. And I have an accountability partner who I talk to and say, hey, what do you think about this? The other thing I have is I have a coach. And I have to be honest, as I got older and I started thinking about coaching, I knew that I myself needed my own coach, because we can sit and think through things, we can journal, we can do all of that. But until we sit there and talk about it with somebody else, it doesn't come, it doesn't come alive. Sometimes we miss pieces of the picture, and it really does take a coach to point it out and say, hey, have you thought about that? So there you have
it. If anyone listening, watching Ruth in the 2 episodes she's been with us, and hey, you're welcome back anytime. Go on my calendar and book, and let's talk habits. I'd love to do that in that setting. Ruth is the real deal. She lives what she says in the advice she offers. So if there's ever any questions about that, put them aside, because Ruth is the real deal. What you see today, what you've seen in both episodes, is Ruth Easterling in that aspect. And Ruth, with that said, one final question. somebody out there needs Ruth Easterling skills and talents and coaching abilities and leadership focus. There's somebody else out there ready to conquer a large mountain. How do they find out and reach out to Ruth?
Well, the nice part about being here in the new century, or however you want to look at it, is we all do Zoom, right? And so I know, Kevin, in your show notes, you'll have my website, which is www.onpl3.com, and you can go there and you can sign up for a time just to meet with me. I never charge anyone to have a conversation with me, because what happens is that oftentimes when I meet with people, some people, they're ready to go for private coaching and one-on-one, and they're like, sign me up, Ruth, right away. Other people are just a little hesitant. I've never done coaching before. So I also have some classes that I do. I have one that's called Creating an Environment for Growth, and it's really about developing your own personal growth journey. And I do this class on a regular basis. It's something that you could sign up for. I also have a VIP group in which I spend 2 nights a month on Zoom with my VIP group, and we walk through things and we talk about what does it mean to live intentionally. And that's a real deep dive into intentional living. And I also have things on communication, classes on communication, classes on developing the leader within you and developing the leaders around you. So all of those things, Kevin. But if you would like to have a little conversation with me, that's the best way. And so go on my website and click the button and get on my calendar.
I would encourage anyone to take Ruth up on that. She's fantastic. She's at the top of my list when it comes to key people who make a difference just by having a conversation. Each and every time there's a conversation with Ruth, you come away with something that you can use, something positive, and something that's meaningful that can stick if we give it a chance to. Ruth, God bless you for everything. Tell your husband and family I said hello. Much respect and love for you all. Appreciate everything you do. This is just, wow, what a great time we've had with you. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all you've offered us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kevin. And I appreciate your friendship. And I appreciate you having me on your podcast today. So it's been a joy. So thank you for the conversation.
Thank you. And Ruth will be back in the future. We're going to talk about habits. We just don't know when yet. Hopefully you found something here to synergize your leadership with what Ruth has brought in these 2 episodes. And again, if you would like more information from Ruth, from me, don't hesitate to reach out. But remember, synergizing leadership isn't about rushing. It's not about going faster. It's about still serving, transforming, inspiring, influencing, loving, and leading. We wish you still leadership and all success. Thank you for joining us.